you win every time. You buy a good location and you have patience. You don't overly leverage. You improve the property, then the property goes up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think the tools of real estate, the basics of real estate, were true 200 years ago. They're true today. And you know what? They're going to be true in 200 years. It's not technology. It's basic supply and demand in your particular area. And keep in mind, a reason I diversify in real estate and diversify in locations, because all real estate is local.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth for Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, the #1 source for top interviews with all of the best real estate investing experts and thought leaders. Today we have Alan Schnurman. He is an author, attorney, real estate investor, and broker based in Hamptons in New York City. He's best known to the public for his distinguished legal background with the firm Zalman, Schnurman & Minor, for which he is the founding partner. He's also the host of the PBS TV legal news program Lawline, which has launched in 1983 and become the longest running show devoted to law in the United States, running for 28 years. Alan, thank you for joining the show, and how are you?
It's my pleasure, and I'm doing fine.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. The last time we spoke was a couple weeks ago, right before I left for vacation, and it was such a great conversation talking to you. And just kind of, I think we went at length at a bunch of different topics, and just talking to you, I can kind of go on forever on kind of your experience in real estate and life. And but the reason I had you on the show is that you're such an expert and so diverse in many different topics, and having a lot of real estate investors and business people and entrepreneurs listed on the show, I think will be just a lot of value to kind of get someone like yourself on. So I appreciate it again.
I'm experienced.
Yeah.
That I can tell you. I've been doing real estate for over 4 decades. I've been a lawyer for almost 50 years. I'm retired now. And I've seen a lot.
Yeah, so kind of talking about your background, if you don't mind, just kind of maybe elaborating a little bit about kind of your background story and kind of like your kind of current focus right now.
Well, how far back do you want me to go?
Maybe just when you kind of just started in your law and then getting into the real estate side.
Yeah. Well, I became an attorney was admitted to the bar in 1972. And basically, all Judy and I had was debts, about $30,000 worth of it. That was my only thing on my balance sheet. And I started working as an attorney. And as I started accumulating any type of excess monies, in fact, the first monies we ever got was at our wedding. We got $1,000. And that was the only money we ever had after law school. And Judy had graduated college.
Wow.
But when I started investing in the stock market as everybody did. And I was very conservative, and I invested in mutual funds. And before I knew it, the market went down 50%, and my mutual funds went down 50%. And I said, this is not for me. And I was in the dentist chair of all places, waiting my turn, and reading Forbes magazine, and I was seeing that the 400 richest people in the United States and how they made their fortunes, and besides being born to it, which I was not, I saw it was real estate in those days. That was way before hedge funds and way before the tech billionaires. So I said, well, if they made it, I'm going to try it. And in 77, we bought our first property. 78, we bought our second property. Actually, we bought a vacation home before we bought our regular home in Brownstone, Brooklyn. And then we lived very modestly, and we invested the difference. We started out investing in what they call mixed-use buildings,
Mm-hmm.
to buy a building with a store and 2 apartments above in the neighborhood in Park Slope and Prospect Heights in Brooklyn. And then they actually had a place in Atlantic Avenue and Flatbush Avenue. They indicated there'd be a massive renovation of the area, so we bought a lot of these small buildings around Atlantic and Flatbush. And of course, that took 20 years, but then eventually became the center of basketball and everything else. It's called the Barclays Center, and they built shopping centers, and we still have all those buildings today. So that only took me 20 years to become an overnight success. But you learn in real estate that it's not only location, which everybody knows. I like to add it's patience. If you don't have patience for the long term, and if you're not investing for the long term, believe me, it's not for you. Real estate, it'll bite you every time. A market will turn down, or if you're overly leveraged and you can't rent it out to the proper tenants, and you don't, you're just inundated with bills. Believe me, you'll be very unhappy. But if you have a long-term view, you become financially secure.
So
that's how we started.
Wow. So what kind of drew you to the Brooklyn market? Was it because it was in your backyard, or?
I lived there. I lived in Park Slope. It was up and coming. To show you that original house that we bought in Park Slope, I put down $10,000 to buy it. There was a program given by Citibank, a 90% mortgage.
Wow.
And I eventually sold it for 80 times my investment.
Wow.
And I said to myself, boy, this is pretty good.
And as far as kind of like the overall like New York City market, where people kind of in that market and buying stuff, or are you just kind of to say, I'm just going to just do something wherever it is?
No, I've been fortunate. I've invested in very up-and-coming markets. I invested in Brooklyn. I invested in Manhattan. I invested in the Hamptons. I invested in Aspen, Colorado. And all these markets are substantial markets that have proven over time to not only be a good rental market, but price appreciation over the long term worked out very well. It really did.
And then kind of moving forward, I know that you kind of advanced in your career as an attorney, and then you got into development in the Hamptons. Was that in between, or is that more kind of later in your career that you decided to tackle that area?
Well, it was interesting. It was around 1999, and I started doing larger projects. Before that, basically, I did it myself or with my law partner, Ben Zalman. And we started doing larger projects. We decided I found 2 lots in a place called Sagaponic in the Hamptons, which was very desirable. And I never built a house before, but I said it was a good idea. And I built a house, and it took me about a year to build it. Of course, I didn't build it. I just wrote the checks. And the next thing that happened was we sold it at a significant profit. And I liked it very much, and I liked the idea of buying the land. I found it a very creative process. I love real estate is very creative. It really is. Like I tell people, I can't paint, I can't sing, I can't dance. But the whole process of finding a piece of land, getting a land expert, getting a surveyor, getting an architect, getting an interior decorator, getting a contractor, putting together a team of people that you trust and know, and then going before boards. It's really, the town boards, which usually only say no. It's a creative process, and I like the process. So that worked out, and then in Bridgehampton, where we lived, a 26-acre beautiful piece of property came about, and I knew that I should buy it. So I put together a group, and it was a great location, and it was a farm. and we bought that, and we the reason I was able to get it at a good price was I didn't even know you could buy these things contingent upon getting approvals. I just bought it.
Oh, wow.
And it took about 30 months to get approvals to subdivide this farm of 26 acres south of the highway in Bridgehampton. And, you know, we paid $12 million for it, and we sold it within maybe 3 months after I got my approvals for $37.5 million.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I was sold that real estate that actually works.
Mm. You had kind of mentioned kind of like what you're doing, the land deal and then the creative process behind it. And there's so much moving parts. What was kind of like the learning curve or the stuff that you kind of, or was it just more like learning along the way and just trying to figure it out? Or
well, I took the attitude, especially with the towns and the town boards, that I didn't have deep pockets and I didn't have a very long time. And I believe in reaching consensus. So I had my staff work with their staff of the town to basically come to something that maybe it wasn't exactly what I wanted in the beginning or what I thought was going to get, but to reach an economic resolution and solution that I could live with. And that's how I did it. I worked with the town board. I try to work with nice people, especially in the process. And you have to have patience. You have to have good investors that understand what they're getting involved in, a long-term process. And it usually works out if you have a good location.
What's kind of like some of the, you know, the challenges that came along the way or things that you learned that maybe you changed at that time that maybe you can give some advice to our listeners?
Yes. In real estate, you have to always be trustworthy and credible. If you're going to get financing from a bank, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a reputation. They are looking for a whole portfolio that you present to them. And that's what I always did. When I went to get financing from an institution, and I always like to get banks because that's basically the least expensive money as opposed to hard money lenders, which I've never gone to, and that's usually at 12% with 3 or 4% up front. You put together a whole book about the project. You put together a book about yourself and your partners and your experience and what you've done in the past. And you get letters from land people, surveyors, and brokers what the lots will sell for once it's built. And you get pictures and you get demographics of the area, and you put together a whole presentation for them. And that's what they like, and, you know, that's what usually gets you the financing. And if you don't get it from one institution, never give up. Mm-hmm. Go to 2, 3. There's many, many institutions, and it's like I always compare it to somebody who's auditioning. You know, you can go to 30 auditions before you get that one audition that says, you're just the person we want, you know, and the other 29, you were too tall, too short, too pretty, not pretty enough, you know, and you have to really succeed. You have to have patience and you have to want to succeed. It doesn't happen naturally. Mm. You know, good things, as you know, usually turn against you before they turn for you. So you have to say to yourself, I really want this. I'll work at it and I'm not giving up. Mm.
Yeah, I like that.
You always have to be optimistic. Mm. You cannot buy real estate if you're not optimistic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you had covered that because I was kind of reading some summaries of your book, I Can, I Will, I Must, where you kind of mentioned the keys to successful real estate investment, which is passion, patience, diligence, flexibility, perseverance, confidence, finding the right partners, overcoming disappointment, and positive outlook. If you don't mind, would you be able to kind of touch on, because you had mentioned before working with partners and investors, on your approach that was most effective for you on working with partners and raising capital?
Picking the right partners, picking the right investors is so important. It is so important. For partners, you want them to be experienced. You want them to be nice. You certainly don't want them to be dysfunctional. picking a partner is like picking a partner in marriage. In fact, it's sometimes more difficult. And you go through the history and you go how you've done together, worked on small deals, and you get larger deals. And I've been fortunate to have fabulous partners over the years, just fabulous partners, as well as fabulous investors. You know, with my investors, I've always handled my investors' money more important than my own, because I felt such obligations, and I never had a problem with an investor. Usually, you know, we've been very, very lucky over the years. So that's how that works. It's a process. Real estate is a process. Real estate development is a process. But it's easier if you're starting out to buy something small that you can handle. You know, by the time I got to be a developer, I had decades of experience, decades of problem solving, and that's what real estate is. Sometimes I think I'm a fireman and I should have a fireman's hat on, because you're on a daily basis. There are challenges. And as you read in the book, I never consider anything a failure. I consider it a challenge, because if you think of things as failures, that's an end game. But a challenge is a beginning. So in anything in life, everybody has challenges, and it's how you deal with those challenges determines whether you're going to be happy or not, whether you're going to be successful or not.
That's right.
And that's how life works.
I like that. As far as kind of like what you're looking to like currently and into the future, like what type of projects outside of New York City and the Hamptons that you're looking at?
Well, I got into the hospitality business. And I purchased a hotel in the Hamptons, and it worked out very well, actually beyond my expectations. We're fully rented from May 15th right through September 15th. And then during the winter, I cut my prices substantially, and I'm 80% rented for winter, mostly to contractors and people that have to be in the Hamptons to do work. And recently I purchased a hotel upstate outside of Saratoga Springs, which is a fabulous area. When I saw it, I was amazed. What an up-and-coming area that has tremendous economic base. They have, of course, the Saratoga racetrack, which is probably one of the oldest racetracks in the United States. And then they have a performing arts center. They have the dance. It truly is a wonderful, vibrant community. And now huge industrial companies, tech companies are coming there. Global Foundry spent $15 billion outside of Saratoga Springs in a small community called Malta, building a factory that has almost 3,200 workers. And for a small area, that's a tremendous economic driver, just tremendous. So I'm interested in there. But I like diversity. I don't buy stocks, but I buy real estate. But I diversify within real estate itself, whether it's hospitality, whether it's retail, mixed use, office. I have one office building, a shopping center. So if one thing is not meeting your expectations, well, the others are, or one other is meeting your expectations. You know, not everything moves at the same pace. And that's why diversification in real estate and the type of real estate that you have, as well as location. Because sometimes, like right now in the Hamptons, it's in an oversupply situation. Even downtown Brooklyn, oversupplied. Manhattan, oversupplied. So it's going to take a while until the existing inventory gets absorbed. So hopefully hopefully you have something maybe in Aspen, Colorado that is in an undersupplied situation, and you're renting and you're getting capital gains in the future. So that's how, that's the nutshell, how you become successful in real estate.
Beautiful. Kind of like putting it all together, like you being a active attorney, developer, real estate broker, For a lot of the people that's listening on the call, how do you kind of put it all together as far as balance? We had talked on our last call regarding you have a wonderful family, good relationship. How are you able to kind of balance work and business and become successful in both?
It's easy. You have to work at it. Everything is work, and I love to work. I love to be productive. So family is first, and everything else is background. And then you have to have a good attitude, and you have to have positive thinking. You always have to be optimistic. I can do it. I can do it. Play the part. Even if you're not experienced, play the part of an experienced person. You'll learn on the job. Mm-hmm. Do your due diligence. Find the right location. You can do it. Listen, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's the whole secret. You have to have confidence in your own decision-making process. Most people are risk adverse. Most people are risk adverse. But it's the successful people that take the chance, that take the risk. You know, I come from a family that was extremely risk adverse. And to be quite frank, you know, it didn't work for them. And I know that was like a model that I used, and that I understood risk, and I understood long-term money. Bernard Baruch, one of the greatest financiers we've had in the turn of the 19th century, was quoted as saying, "Those who are not content to grow rich slowly probably won't." Mm. And I found that to be true. The person who lives next door will win the lottery, or the person around the block will buy a house and flip it and make a profit. But that usually doesn't happen to you. You read about it. I like winning every time. That's why I don't invest in the stock market. Mm. I like winning every time. And in real estate, if you follow the program, you win every time. You buy a good location and you have patience. You don't overly leverage. You improve the property, then the property goes up immediately. Mm-hmm. I like to think the tools of real estate, the basics of real estate, were true 200 years ago. They're true today. And you know what? They're going to be true in 200 years. It's not technology. It's basic supply and demand in your particular area. And keep in mind, a reason I diversify in real estate and diversify in locations, because all real estate is local. Mm-hmm. In Long Island, Suffolk County may be oversupplied and Nassau County is not. That's how close it is. It can come down to blocks. Some blocks are better than other blocks. Some blocks are more desirable than one around the corner. All real estate is local to the location. So if you have the location, and I always tell people, listen, if you want to start in real estate, start in the area where you live. Start in the area where you work. Start in the area that you know. Don't go out to Illinois if you live in Maine. Mm-hmm. And I like to control my deals. I've always said, if I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to make the mistake. I don't want somebody else making a mistake with my money. And that's how it works.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Kind of like you kind of just talk about a little bit of personal development. Like I know that you mentioned that you ran marathons and you're vegan, you're a healthy eater, you're very active. So what are kind of some of the stuff that you do, maybe like a morning routine that maybe other people can mimic and follow that would be helpful to the audience?
Okay. So just first, I want to give my philosophy. You're born at one end of this life, and, you know, there's an end to it. I don't know if I've told you that. Someday there's an end. Mm-hmm. So it's how you live in between those two things that really matters. How do you live between point A and point B? And of course, the idea is to become happy. So I believe, I remember I like work, and my family is first and everything. So I think health and exercise. I start my morning every morning by doing exercises. I no longer run because now I'm 74 years of age. I like to think 74 years young. And but I walk. I walk at least 4 miles a day. Sometimes I walk up to 12 miles, depending what I do. And I look at real estate in the areas I'm doing it. Right here, I'm upstate New York now on a farm, and I look at all the other farms around me. And I walk a loop. In the city, I go through new areas that I want to look at, whether it's the Lower East Side or Williamsburg. All these areas are hot. Chelsea is booming, and it's exciting to look at real estate and walk around. There's nothing substituted. Sometimes I have listings in my hand, and I just walk around to see the listings, or I see transfers. I see what one building sold for. Let me take a look at that building. And I'm walking, and I look at the building to see what it looks like on the outside because I know it's sold for X number of dollars. And so I combine exercise with the knowledge of real estate. So, and then as you said, I'm a vegan, and I eat the same breakfast every day of my life, which is I make my own oatmeal, not instant, and I always put different fruits in it.
Nice.
And I eat a lot of it, and that lasts me at least to lunch. And I have a salad for lunch, and for dinner I usually have a grain, a pasta, or a vegetable, and I always have a salad. And I try to limit my desserts. I try to always be thin. I come from a very large family, and I mean large people, so I always want to be thin. We have very slow metabolisms. And so that's how I started. I take care of my health, I find is very, very important. And then during the morning at night, I stay time with the family, and I do my projects. I do work. I speak to people. I want to be active. When I retired 8 years ago. I told Judy, my wife, my next 20 years are going to be my best years. And you know what? They are.
Beautiful.
I'm not a lawyer anymore, but I'm so active. I'm doing new things. I'm pushing the boundaries every single day into new areas. And I love every second. That's the whole thing. Isn't that what life is about?
Exactly.
That you appreciate it. What's important? One, self-respect, that you respect yourself. Two, that you have respect of your peers. And that you have a good attitude. No matter what happens, try to keep a good attitude. I like to think attitude equals altitude. And I have my quotes. I don't know if you read that in the summary. I have one from Helen Keller that I follow every day. I say it to myself. Optimism. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Let me say that again. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Think about it. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. All you have to do is look around the room you're in now, and somebody maybe built the desk that you're sitting at. Had to be optimistic, had to be an entrepreneur, or the chair you're sitting on. Somebody had to build that chair who is an entrepreneur. So it's, that's how I do it. That's how I think it.
Yeah, I like that.
I have my quotes and I live by them.
Exactly. You kind of mentioned like with your wife, Judy, and your kids, your career, the things that you love. If you can kind of go in a little bit deeper, kind of round out the interview, is what are you most grateful for?
I have been blessed, and I am grateful Believe me, I am grateful for it, and I try to give back whenever I can. I was raised by a single mother, and Judy and I established a scholarship at our law school, New York Law, for single mothers who are going to law school. Mm. Because I know how hard it is for a single mother. Hard. It's almost impossible. It probably is impossible to raise a family by yourself. And that's what we do. You know, it's, I'm happy every day because I work at being happy every day.
I like that. Your book, if you can kind of tell us, I know we kind of went over kind of like a huge summary of most of the key points of it, but if you could kind of elaborate the book, I Can, I Will, I Must, and then what readers can expect from it.
Well, that is not a nonchalant phrase for me. The reason I wrote it as a title, because that's one of the things I say to myself. Because inside of me is truly a person who is scared of everything he does, scared to take risks. I am, and I admit it freely, I'm worried to death that whatever I invest in is not going to work out. So what I do is I have my I can, I will, I must. And I say that to myself to re-energize myself every single morning. I have my quotes, and they're very, very important to me because it gets me through doing a project. If I'm doing a very big project, I lose 7 pounds because I'm doing all my due diligence, and it's hard to eat for me. But and I'm not heavy to start. But and to stay physically fit is so important. You know, if you read in the book, now I do hiking. I just came back from New Zealand. I was hiking there for 3 weeks. I'm planning a hike now to Peru for a couple of weeks. And I love the outdoors. It's a beautiful, beautiful world, and everybody should appreciate it as much as they can.
Wow. Alan, it was a pleasure talking to you. I know we can go probably hours and hours on the different stories and the insights, and you just kind of just empowering as far as like your work ethic and kind of your goals and your whole mindset. You're so positive, and it's just a pleasure to speak with you. It's kind of like talking to Zig Ziglar on the phone right now.
Oh, that's a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, a huge mentor through books and tapes of mine. So, and like I said, you could just kind of remind me of kind of like your this positive attitude and how that kind of just rolls out and just spread out to not only just your real estate investment career, but your life and your family. And that's kind of like the major goal for everybody that's looking to do well. So, you know, Alan, I really appreciate it.
I thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. Look forward to connecting with you. Again, folks, it's Alan. His book, I Can, I Will, I Must, is available on Amazon, as well as the website, I think, is I Can, I Will, and I Must.com.
That's correct. I Can, I Will, I Must.com.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.